ASMR Magical Tools. Hi, welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Today, I wanted to talk about some things related to spiritual growth, related to spiritual organizations, and related to what else? Recognizing toxicity in spiritual circles. Burn a little frankincense, just a bit of frankincense. Just let the flame guide you into your relaxation. There we go. Perfect. So, let me do a little bit of cleansing on you first. And then I can put this right over here and let the smoke just kind of drift up and fill the space. Fill the space. So, what is the best way to keep your vibes immaculate in an imperfect world? I recommend deleting all negativity from your social media. I don't know if you've noticed this in my videos, but I cull my comments section quite heavily. And my reason for doing this is because I am cultivating a particular vibe around my videos. I'm working very hard to make sure that I am providing a largely positive experience for the viewer. So if somebody comes into the comments section and leaves negative, feedback there, I'm going to delete it. And I recommend you doing the same. You can delete people's comments off of your Instagram posts, off of Facebook, off of most platforms, Tumblr being the large exception to that. And speaking of Facebook, I recommend that you stay away from platforms that are especially triggering, especially platforms that have algorithms that encourage certain types of posts. So Instagram can be very notorious for this. Facebook can be as well. Unfollow and unfriend people who set off your gut reflex. Like if every time you see a post from them, your gut drops, your gut sinks. Even if you're friends with this person, even if you don't particularly dislike them, that's going to be feedback for you that is a negative reinforcement. If you want to stay in contact with that person, you can get their phone number and text message them or talk to them through email. You don't have to follow them on social media. The emphasis is on mental quietude. Mental quietude. So that means you eliminate what you are able to better control so that you can mitigate your responses to the things that you cannot control. And this has been very helpful to me in my own life. In my notes here, communicate with compassion. This is not just about treating others the way you want to be treated, but it extends into situational awareness. It's impossible to know the ramifications of every action, and you don't want to get bogged down by overanalyzing everything that you do. But it leaks over into the effects of your manifestation. So, one example is that people encourage you, if you're asking for money or something like that, to say to the benefit of all, which then is supposed to prevent things from happening, like family members passing away in order to leave you an inheritance. That's how you come into the money, right? But there can be positive effects to this also. So if your focus is already on the health and well-being of your community and the people around you, you don't have to remind yourself during your working that what you're doing is for the benefit of all. Now, you can still include that clause in your spell work, but it's not as necessary. I'll be doing lots of the singing bowl in this video. It's not necessarily that I'm trying to keep you awake, but really want to create a space where we can encourage our positive vibrations to shine through. And I probably won't timestamp this this video, but it does give me good transitional points. So let's talk about the media and things that you're exposing yourself to in film, entertainment, music, the news, politics. It's good to want to be informed on current events, and bad things do happen in the world. I myself am particularly triggered by politics. The deep-seated anger one can generate from these feelings about injustice can be very powerful for cursing, for example. This does have its place in the world. Everything can't be sunshine and light always. It's important to be mindful of toxic positivity as well, thinking that just because you're doing everything right, that everything's always going to go as you plan. However, wouldn't it be better if people learned compassion for each other? If people were just a little more gentle with each other? It spreads just the same way that anger, fear, and hatred do. Don't let your blinding rage, even if it is justified, cloud your spirit and your body with lower vibrational energy. If you are not being directly confronted by said energy, because there are very important times for righteous anger indeed. Others will benefit more by you uplifting the common and universal energies than by you getting people stirred up through conversations about these things. So it's good to be informed, and it's good to watch the news somewhat. But if you find yourself being triggered to anger and aggression by it, it's also important to take a step back and recognize that you are better serving the collective energy by raising your vibration and the vibrations of those around you, especially if you're in a position of privilege in which to do so. So, by necessity, everyone's energetic path to their higher selves is different. And I'm talking about everyone's toolbox now. Everybody has a toolbox, and everybody has things in their toolbox. You might have gotten a lot of the things in your toolbox from your parents, from therapists, from teachers, from advisors. Maybe I stuck something in there one time. So there are different modalities, like Reiki is a very powerful tool. It's not the only healing modality. There are a lot of healing modalities that you can use. Some of them aren't even really named or described in specific terms. Likewise, mindfulness meditation, something that I have utilized quite a bit, is not the totality, should not be the totality of your practice, and is not the totality of life-altering meditation. Auditing, which is something that is used by the Church of Scientology, operates by many of the same psychiatric principles as neuro-linguistic programming. So be in control of your software and know what you're downloading. People talk about getting these spiritual downloads, right? But what are you really downloading? You have to be careful. You have to know what's coming in. Now, if you have surrounded yourself with spiritual guides who are looking out for your best interest, it's a little easier to let down your guard. But I discussed a lot in my Q&A video, and I do regularly talk about protective procedures, and it's very important to include those in your spiritual hygiene. So, now talking about toxicity in spiritual circles. It's human nature to want to compete with each other. Anything can be a competition if you give it a chance. Enlightenment is no different. It's easy to see the people who we pass in our mundane lives at the grocery store, at work, at school, as unenlightened sheeple subject to the Illuminati overlords. But that's an oversimplification and a fallacy. So one of the things that happens when you pass away is that there is an accounting of everything that has happened, interactions between you and other people, and your cumulative effect on the world. I know that I would get quite a shock if I had put myself so far high above other people around me, only to realize how many times I had screamed slurs or hateful words at retail workers and waitstaff. Unless someone is specifically and explicitly described their process to you and explained these things, you're not going to understand what they've been through. You're not going to see their journey the same way that they see it. No one owes you that explanation either. Allow others to witness your mental stillness and compassion without compunction. Let's talk about boundaries. Boundaries is one of my favorite of all of the buzzwords. Anyone can be victimized by a cult, and often it's not based on choices, they themselves made. How can you know to set good boundaries to protect yourself and your family from destructive spiritual hierarchies? Any organization seeking to control its members, whether a church, workplace, or even a book club, will manipulate its members using a handful of techniques which are time-tested and fairly consistent. So the true distinction is the level of control exercised over the members' lives. It starts out with indoctrination. This is where they talk to you about the very special and exclusive part you play within the organization. They could be making big promises, bolstering your self-esteem, or offering you something you want, like they might be giving away free tablets, free tablet computers, or drugs. Commonly it's drugs. The second step is isolation. Now they're working on earning your trust to the exclusion of all others, especially anyone who's critical of that organization. Pay close attention, because this is going to bleed into the pattern of intentional distortion of the truth, which will be pervasive throughout their doctrine. The next step is erosion. Rights that you had when you entered will gradually be stripped away, and they'll do it in an incremental process, so that it'll first be like, you can't wear headphones on the work floor, or you can't have your cell phone on you when you're on the work floor. And from there, they'll gradually ramp it up and up and up. Now, this is one of the situations in which you can really see the crossover from cult behavior into the corporate world, especially here in America. I'm familiar with these techniques, and it's part of their capitalist brainwashing. They too are using these techniques. And I'm not trying to harp too much on that. I wouldn't need to if things hadn't gotten to the point they are now. It's not something that I'm going to be bringing up in every single video from now on out. But it did come up in the Q&A, and it is coming up again here. The fourth part of this process is the psychological warfare. This can include gaslighting, distortion and altering the truth, peer pressure, drugs, sleep deprivation, bullying, and other similar tactics. Oftentimes they'll use the group in order to commit physical assault on those who are being difficult. By the time your involvement has reached this point, it will be very difficult to separate from the organization. Often, all the money will have been turned over to this organization, or resources like free time and adequate pay are going to be withheld from you. Now, I certainly don't hold anyone at fault for getting involved in these situations, whether it's a cult or a corporation or a clique that's not necessarily spiritually motivated, but has a lot of the same traits that you would see in a cult. You really cannot fault people for falling into these circumstances, and I think that's really the most important part of this portion of the video. because there are all kinds of circumstances that lead people to seek out this kind of companionship or wind up companions with these kinds of people. So there you go. That covers the girlboss, the gaslight, and the gatekeep. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know down in the comments. If you would like to submit questions for my future Q&A videos, please look down in the description for the link. This allows you to submit questions anonymously. Thank you so much for your support.